Welcome to the Modern JavaScript 2020 course, Part 4. In this part of the course we'll be covering if, then, else statements. This is the Modern JavaScript 2020 course. Your course instructor will be Sam. He has over 20 years experience in the IT industry. Please subscribe to Bain's Infotech World and please like and show your appreciation. Course contents. We're going to cover 5 different types of if conditional statements. Okay, in this course we'll be covering 5 statements. First of all, we're going to talk about some common JavaScript questions. Can you get a job with JavaScript skills in 2020? Most definitely yes. JavaScript is one of the top programming languages in the world, and the reason is that it's used in all web pages. On every website, on every web page, there is a possibility to use JavaScript. So it's the most widely used programming language in the world. Why is JavaScript useful? Because you can use JavaScript to program the web browser and HTML pages to give extra behavior and extra features, to give dynamic effects. This basically means like you can get check things happening dynamically. You can use it for form validation, for changing the color of buttons when you move the mouse over them. You can get it to time out. You can get it to do things after a certain time. Every 5 seconds you can get it to change a color, flash text. You can get it to write even HTML into replace HTML elements and without going to the server. So it's very powerful. What do you do with it? With JavaScript? You write JavaScript code and programs in HTML, or you can write your JavaScript code in separate .js files. How does JavaScript run? JavaScript runs in the browser. Whenever you go to a HTML page and it's downloaded from the internet, it can contain JavaScript code, which will be embedded in HTML, or it will be in a separate file, and that JavaScript code is run by the browser. Okay, next question. Is JavaScript really free? Yes, most definitely. JavaScript is free because it comes built into the browser, and you can download the browsers for free any time you want. And they come from different companies like Apple, Google, and Microsoft have their own versions of the browser, but they do run the same JavaScript code because of standardization. JavaScript is published as a standard, so each company will conform to the standard. So your JavaScript code will run in exactly the same way in each browser. What else is JavaScript good for? Well, JavaScript engine has been ported or copied over to other applications. JavaScript engine is also used in Adobe products like PDF and Flash. JavaScript engine has also been copied over into a C++ program called Node.js. The Node.js program runs on the server side, and you can use it to build web servers and process web pages and return results to the browser. So you can have JavaScript running on your browser and also running on the server. JavaScript Node.js can be used to replace web servers like Internet Information Explorer, or you can replace Apache Web Server. So you can use your JavaScript skills on your client side, which is where your browser runs, and you can use it on the server side, which is where your web pages are stored over the internet. Okay, moving on to the next question. Okay, typical programming problems that you might discover with when programming in JavaScript. Using if-then-else statements, and if-then-else statements are also known as conditional statements, which is the reason is that the action that's performed depends on the condition of a certain value or expression. And so, for example, would be if you said, if it's raining today, then I'm going to take my umbrella with me, and if it's not raining, then I don't need an umbrella. The same way you could say, if x is less than 3, print out this command, or if x is larger than 3, print out, do something else. So you can use conditional statements to perform different actions. Conditional statements are used to run different commands depending on the result of a certain expression. As I mentioned, conditional statements can be used to run different commands. So you can say, if x is less than 3, run command 1. So if x is less than 3, command 1 will be run. Otherwise, if x is not less than 3, nothing more, command 1 will not be run and nothing will happen, and the code will just go on to the next line of code and run that. If the test expression, which in our case is x is larger than 3, is true, then the command is run, action is performed, otherwise it's not performed. If the test expression is false, command 1 is not run, as just mentioned. JavaScript keywords must always be in lowercase. Because JavaScript is case sensitive, keywords must be in lowercase, otherwise they will not be recognized as JavaScript keywords. Otherwise, the JavaScript keywords must always be in lowercase. Otherwise, JavaScript interpreter will generate an error message, and your code will not work properly. Okay, moving on to the next section. Okay, this is the first if-then-else statement. What we can see here is that there's a data flow diagram here in the middle, and as you can see, it says you perform a test condition, and if the result is true, then you run the command. If the result is false, you finish, which means carry on to the next line and don't run the command. Down here at the bottom, we've got if x is less than 5, perform this command, which is in block enclosed with brackets, which is document.write string colons and true. So that writes out the string to the browser window. Here we have some code which performs that action. So if we copy this code into our editing window in Visual Studio Code, which is here. We use Visual Studio Code, which is this one as well. It's even better. So we will replace this code with our code, and in this code we've got our script tags saying JavaScript code. We declare two variables, variable x equals 5, variable y equals 3, and then we use an if statement. We say if x is larger than 1, do this, which is document write x is larger than 1. Okay, and that's all we do in our script. And we've got a closing script tag here. So let's have a look at the output in our browser. We're using Google Chrome browser to see the output. So we go to our Google Chrome browser and we do a refresh, which is Control R, and do Control R again, and what we get is x is larger than 1, which is what we're printing out to the screen here. Now if we change this expression and we say x is less than 1 and save that, so x is actually 5, so it's not less than 1, so that should fail. This test should fail and nothing should be written to the screen. So let's refresh our browser again, and we see that nothing is written to the screen apart from this paragraph of text that we've got in HTML, which tells us where the program is finished. Okay, so that's that one. That's statement 1. Now if we go on to the next statement. Statement 2 is very similar. It starts off with a start block, and then we do a test, and if the result is true we run the command and we finish that command. If the test is false, if the test fails, result is false, then we finish without running the command. The syntax will be shown as if x is less than 3, document write dot true. In this case we're not using the curly brackets, which is a block, so you can just put the command straight after the test condition. Okay, so here we have the code for that statement, statement 2. And what we're going to do is we're going to just copy this code over into our Visual Studio Code editor, and we copy it over here. We say get rid of that, Control V, save it, Control S. I go to our browser window and do Control R to refresh, and in this case we have the same result, x is larger than 1, and the reason being that x is declared as 5, and if we say if x is larger than 1, document print x is larger than 1, which is great. So let's change that a little bit. If we say x is less than 1, this will fail, and let's refresh and we have nothing, there's no result, which means the test failed and nothing was done. If we change it back to x is larger than 1, we can change this writing to statement 2. We do Control S to save that in Visual Studio Code. We go into our browser, could do Control R to refresh that page, and as you can see we have the word statement 2, because now our expression is true, x is larger than 1, and document write will be run. If we go into our we can go into our tools, web console. Here we can do Control Shift I, and that'll open up in our web console. And what we can do here is we can say go to our console, so that's our console where we are. So if we do X, we'll see we'll do lowercase x and see what the value of x is. And it says the value of x is 5, as we've got here. And if we look at the value of y, we say y. If we say x is larger than 1, we can see the condition is true. And if x is less than 1, we say the condition is false. We can also write an if statement. We say if x is larger than 1, then document dot write brackets today. So we can write the JavaScript code in our console and we can run it. And it says syntax error. Okay, which is naughty. So let's have a look. So it was saying because we missed the bracket. There's opening bracket and closing brackets. So we need to put those in. So put the closing bracket in and see what happens. Okay, try it again with a semicolon. And for some reason that's not working in our let's try curly brackets. Maybe it's curly brackets that are needed. Okay, the reason this is we're not seeing anything here is because it's actually writing to the this today is being written to our browser window up here, as you can see at the top here. So what we can do is we can go back to our console and we can do a different command. We can use Control L to clear the console screen, and we can do console.log, which is which will write the string to your console. So now if we say x is larger than 1, console.log today, as you can see, it's written the today not to the browser but to the console log. So this is a very good way of testing your JavaScript code, because you can print to your console. If we say x equals 5, so if we say x equals 0, now x is 0, and if we run this command again, if x is larger than 1, print console.log. As you can see, nothing is printed out. So that means it's working correctly. Let's do Control L to clear that screen. Minimize Visual Studio Code, minimize the browser. So this is statement 2. So I'm going on to the next statement. This is statement 3. In this version of the if then else command, we've got the start section. We do the test, and if the result is true, we run command 1, and if the result is false, we can run command 2, and then we finish. And the syntax is written like this: if x is less than 3, do this, in other words, document write true, else document write false. So you have two commands. You can run one command if it's true, run another different command if it's false, which can be very useful. So let's have a look at the code. This is the code, and if we copy this code into Visual Studio, the if then else command is here. If x is larger than 1, do the first block, which is document write. Then we have else, do something else, do this second block. So we copy this code into Visual Studio Code like so. Delete that. Paste in our code. Do Control S to save it. Go to our browser window. Close our console. And we refresh by doing Control R in the browser. And it's saying X is larger than 1. So we've put X is equal to 5 if X is larger than 1. Document write X is larger than 1 to the browser. Else, if the else command will not be run in this case because the first condition is true and only the true condition is run. If the result was false, then the false condition would be run. So if we change this to less than, so we say if X is less than, save this and refresh this, Control R, we get the correct result. X is not larger than 1 because when you run this test, if X is less than 1, it fails. So this section is not run. And false, which says if X is less than 1, do the first bit, otherwise do the else statement, which is X is not larger than 1, which is what we've got here. So that's working correctly. Minimize that. So going on to our next statement. Statement number 4 is a version of the if then else command is if the test result is true, then run command 1. If it is false, do another test and run command 2 if the result is true. Otherwise, if it's false, test 2 is false, then run command 3 and then finish. So this is combining two if statement, else statements into one command, into one statement. And what we can see here is that you do, as before, if condition, do this. Otherwise, if it fails, then do this. Do this block, but this block is another if statement, which another if then else statement. So let's copy this code into our Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code, we do Control A to select, delete to delete what's in there, we do Control V to paste our new code, and we do Control S to save this new code, and then we go to our browser window here and we'll do Control R to refresh the window, and it says X is larger than 1. So the reason is because if X is larger than 1 says do this, which is print X is larger than 1. So that's fine. So if we say X is say X is less than 1. So in this case we've got X is equal to 5. So if we say X is less than 1, we save this, Control S, we do Control R. And what happens is this test fails, the first test fails because X is equal to 5, and this test fails, X is less than 1 fails, so this is ignored. We go on to our next statement, which says if X is larger than 3, then print X is larger than 3. And this is what happens in our browser window. We get X is larger than 3 because we're doing the second test condition. Now, if the second test condition fails, what will happen is this last section will be run where x is not larger than 1 or 3. Okay, so what we do is we change this change the value of this condition back to larger than, and we change the value of x to 0. So save that, Control S. So what's going to happen in this case is x is not larger than 1 and it's not larger than 3. And so this section will be ignored, this section will be ignored, and the last section will be run by default. So we go to our browser window and do Control R, and it says x is not larger than 1 or 3 as per the last statement here. So yeah, so that's working fine. So let's go on to the next statement. Okay, going on to statement number 5. This is a special version of the if else statement, and it's called the switch command. It's got its own name. You start off with the beginning of the command, with the start condition or start of the command. You do a test, and if it's true, you run a command 1, and if it's if it's not true, then you go on to another test down this way, and if that's true, then you say run command 2. Otherwise you go to test number 3, and then you say if it's true, run command 3. Otherwise you go down to the default and say alright, do this otherwise. So we can look at this. So what happens is you say, for example, if x was 10, if x was 5, and we say x was 5, and then we do start here, and we say the test would be, case 1 would be, condition would be, is x equal to 1? If it is, then true, then run command 1. Test 2 could be if x equals 2, run command 2. Test 3 would be if x equals 3, run command 3, case 3, case 1, 2, 3. Otherwise, it would go down here to the default condition, and it would run the default command, which would be print x equals 5, for example. So, and then they finish. So running after each command goes down this way. If it runs command 1, it will go to the end of the statement, it will finish. If it runs command 2, it will go to the end of the statement, it will finish. If it goes to run command 3, it will go to the end of the command and finish. If it doesn't match any of these conditions, it will go to the default condition and run the default command at the bottom, and then it will finish. Okay, that's a switch statement. Having a look at the code, we can see that what we do is we declare a variable, and we say x is, for example, we say x is 3, and we use a switch command, so we say switch on x, on the value of x. So we're saying depending on the value of x, do something. Okay, and we have a block here, and then we have case 1. So this is saying in case x is equal to 1, the value of 1, do this document write x equals 1, and then afterwards break, which means finish, go to the finish end of this statement. Case 2 is if x is equal to 2, then we say print x is equal to 2, x is 2, and then we break, in other words finish this statement. If x is equal to 3, if x is 3, then we write x is 3, and then we break, which means go to the end of the statement. And then otherwise, if none of these match, we say if it's not 1, not 2, not 3, then we go to the default, which is write document x is not 1, 2 or 3. Okay, so that's our code. If we copy this code into our Visual Studio Code browser like this, so bring up Visual Studio Code, do Control A to select everything, do delete to delete it, do Control V to paste our new code, do Control S to save it. Then we go to our browser window and we do Control refresh. And as you can see, this is not working for some reason. So let's have a look why it's not working. Okay, the reason is we haven't got all of our code. We've only got the top part of our code here. So let's have a look at our code again. We've got some more code down the bottom here that we didn't copy. So let's put this one in. And we go to our browser and we say go to the bottom and we do Control V. So that's the rest of our code that we needed. We needed the closing script tag. We've got some HTML there at the end as well. So let's save this, and then we go to our browser window and do Control. If we have a quick look at this, we can see what happened last time. We can go to our, do Control Shift I in our browser, Control Shift I will bring up our web console, then we go to our console, and there's nothing there really. Nothing. There's no error messages in the console. Elements, nope. Sources, nope. Console. Okay, so the console is not giving any error message yet. Go back to our code, do Control S to save it, go back to our browser window, do Control R to refresh, and this time we get the correct result. We've set x as 3, and condition case 1 fails, case 2 fails, case 3 passes, and document and x is 3 is written to the screen as per here, as per our browser output. Now we can do, let's make x equal to 5. And save that. And then we rerun this, refresh our browser, and we've got x is not 1, 2, 3, 1, 2 or 3. And the reason is we've set x as 5. And our case statement says x is 1, do this, x is 2, do this, x is 3, do this, and otherwise do this last bit, which is saying x is not 1, 2 or 3. Typical example, typical scenario that this would be used would be like if you were doing days of the week. You could say if x is Monday, then do this. If x is Tuesday, do this. If x is Wednesday, do this. So you could use something like that. You could use a list of different values and put it into a variable, and depending on the day of the week, you could do perform different actions. Okay, so that was statement 5, which is quite useful. So the rest of our code. Okay, in this summary, course summary, we've covered 5 statements for the if then, if else statement, or if else command, and the switch command. Thanks for watching. Bain's Infotech World is our channel. Please like and subscribe to show your appreciation. And this is the finish off the Modern JavaScript 2020 course, Part 4, If Then Else statements. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.